Well, I think I'll stay standing if it's okay with you guys. Is it okay with the cameraman? Before the Q&A. I was just saying, I gather that last Monday you had Anthony Joshua here, so that's got to be the tallest 2 consecutive speakers you've ever had. Both of us over 6'6". He might just be in better shape than me. I met him at Sheffield at a gym in 2013, and normally me being me, as you see, I've got quite a good pair of shoulders on me. I try and outlift anyone I beat. I took one look at what he was shifting and went, you win. Anyway, it's lovely to see you all here. I'm a bit in awe of being invited here. In 1983, I came up to do mathematics at Exeter College. In 1986, I got my third, which keep quiet about. I did spend rather a lot of time on the sports pitch. And I'm working out that the only time I've been here was in 1985, where I played snooker upstairs against my good friend Dermot Russell, which shows something. I couldn't remember how to find my way here, but once I was here, I knew the snooker table was straight up there. So perhaps that sums up the kind of memory I've got. And I'm slightly at a loss what to do. It's not often I get an open thing of just speak whatever you will, but I almost don't know what to say here, because if you'd have put money on the class of 83 from Exeter College, Oxford, who's the one who's going to be arguably the most famous in 2022, you wouldn't have bet on me. We won a BAFTA yesterday. I didn't even know what a BAFTA was. All these actors and theatrical people, TV producers, it's their life work. They were like crying with joy at winning. And they handed me and I go, yeah, that's nice. It's nice and heavy. Clearly lead would have been gold plated. Oh, thanks very much, cheers. But I guess we're just wired up differently. On the other hand, my team were lucky enough to win Only Connect in 2009. And we won it when it was quite early, so it was a bit like winning the Olympics in the early days, where it was a lot easier to do, but it doesn't matter. We won! And I'm far prouder of that. And I'm in this slightly weird position, because on one hand, I got measured by ITV, I've got an IQ of 151, so I just scrape into the genius category. But the 3 categories I was well into the top percentile on, and you can tell how bad a mathematician I am. I still can't work out whether the top percentiles, the 99th percentile or the 100th percentile. Perhaps someone who's a statistician can tell me. Either way, I'm in the top percent, and I'm in the top 1% of the top 1% in 3 areas. One is mental calculations. Yay! Kind of mistake I made. I did maths because I was really good with numbers, which I should have realised when I came here. We don't do numbers here at Oxford. The second one was neural processing speed, which again was so useful for the chase. Literally, I've got the brains of a fighter pilot. I just haven't got the body of one. I mean, it's great because I still can, things like the sports pitch, you're able to react and your brain can make up for what your body can't do. So I can work out what I should do, I just haven't got the skills to do it. And the third one that's also the top percentile was memory, which was, until 2009, virtually worthless. And then who knew how many people can say that the job they were born to do, try again, sorry, it's the teacher in me. If I pick on you, it's nothing personal, it's just force of habit. If I start treating you like you're a year 11 class on a wet Wednesday afternoon, I'm afraid it's years of training. Anyway, so memory's my thing, and who knew that the job I was born to do, that literally you couldn't have created a job that fitted my personality and skill set. It didn't exist to 2009 until I was 43 years old. And you think of all the thing now for the undergrads or grads, quite a few of you are planning what you're going to do with your life. Some of you lucky people may know exactly what you're going to do. Others of you may not have a clue. And the slightly scary thing about life is how it changes without you knowing it. There's some lucky people, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be a computer scientist. You know exactly what you're going to do, you focus on it. Others are going, still don't quite know where I want to end up. That's why perhaps so many people end up in a job like HR. I'm not sure anybody plans to be in HR, they just end up in it. With no I am being disrespectful to them. And I have a little theory that, having spent a fair bit of time in education, I think slightly backwards to most people. I don't think that education opens doors. What I think is that a lack of education shuts them. So take a case in point. I'm not a doctor, but I could have been if I wanted to. I did train as a lawyer, found it quite easy. Sorry, lawyers. Well, don't forget, I wasn't doing it at Oxford, I was doing it at another place, and soon realised that, I'm sorry, those people who claim all universities are the same are talking out of their backsides. But because it was so damn easy. But I thought it wasn't the right personality for me, but it was doable. There's so many other jobs I could have done if I had the interest or inclination. Whereas, it's the hardest thing as a teacher when you're speaking to a kid in the sixth form and they're trying to do their maths and they want to be a doctor or dentist, and the problem is you're going, sorry, you just can't do it. You don't want to be negative, but maths is a subject that's talent-based. And unfortunately, while I reckon you can train just about anyone up to a certain level, that at the moment I would have said with maths for A-level and beyond, if you can't do algebra, it's going to be tough. So what do you do in that situation with someone desperately wants to be in that subject or that area but can't do it? I mean, the only thing I wish I told myself at 18 is, Mark, you may be built like an England rugby international, but you are not blessed with anything like fast twitch muscles. You're bulletproof, but you're never going to be fast enough. So forget about the sport, just concentrate on your brain, because that's the quite good bit. Anyway, that's my little speech. I'll witter on forever, because this is the problem being an ex-teacher. We can witter on anything. If they ever let me on, Just a Minute, I'll win every time. I'm sorry, Paul Sidney, you may be a champion, but your arse is mine if you face me. So I'll go straight to Q&A. I'll sit down now and try and be nice. I've only got one question I won't answer, and that's how much I'm on, because I'll tell you the answer is that what you should give in this scenario. None of your damn business.
Thank you very much for that address. I thought it was very, very interesting and amusing. I suppose we'll start at the beginning. I mean, as you said, most people don't wake up as a 7-year-old and think, I'm going to be a professional quizzer. Were you interested in general knowledge and quizzes as a child? And if not, when did it sort of start to hit you that this was something you could make money from and then do more seriously?
The answer is yes. So from an early age, again, it's a difference in background. My boy's 5 years old and he lives on his tablet watching YouTube Kids and stuff like that. So the idea of waiting for a television show is anathema to him. He just dials it up and watches what he wants to do. I grew up in the 70s where we had free channels and you got what you were given. And they weren't even on that long. I think it was something like 4 p.m. till 12 p.m. and occasionally during the school holiday for kids. So you got what you were given, but from an early age, I liked watching Mastermind and University Challenge. And hey, I'm 7, 8 years old. I'm not going to get many right, but I got the odd ones right. And I have this theory that in any area of human activity, it divides into 3 sort of competencies. Is it Malcolm Sitwell is his 10,000 hours of experience? Apologies if I'm misquoting him. You may notice my memory sort of works. It's fuzzy. My colleague Sean remembers exact dates. He'll go, it's Roger Bannister, 6th of May, 1954. I mean, I've run there enough on the track when I was here, but I'm going, I knew it was May 1954, but I didn't know the exact date. So but I'm lucky to have what I call a sticky memory, and it's that ability to sort of remember lots of things. So as I'm walking up here, I'm going, oh, hang on, there's the theatre, hang on. I was working in 1986, Cameo were a band there, because I remember walking past it. I see my good friend James Haskell, the ex-Wasp flanker, he's doing the good, the bad and the rugby there next week. So you clock these little things, and I'm going 22nd of May 2022, because that's the way my mind works. I've got flaws. The exact opposite. We've just been upstairs in was it Macmillan room? No, the Gladstone room. I could tell you where the schematics were, where the table were, wherever. You asked me what the colour scheme is, I couldn't tell you. I'm not colourblind, it just doesn't register. Poor colour perception. So it's just as well I didn't want to be an interior decorator. Would have been the worst. But this sticky memory means I am that annoying person who didn't do revision for A-levels because I didn't need to. I remembered it the first time round. It wasn't great, but it's a lot easier when you don't have to bother revising something. And it's a gift that I guess I've trained over the years. So when I'm in London, going on the tubes and whatever, I'm always looking around at what the new films are or theatrical productions. And almost without trying, I remember, so-and-so's in that film and whatever. And so you better drag it back. the one thing I've got disturbingly good for a straight man is on ladies' fashion, because my lovely wife does like the high-end brands. And when we've been to like Fifth Avenue in New York or whatever, and she's heading round, I'm starting going, uh-oh. I now know to dread the sight of a Louis Vuitton thing or whatever. I'm still in shock from a few years ago. As you love your wife, you buy her a nice pair of Christian Louboutins, and apparently they're for being seen and not for walking. I'm a bloke. For me, shoes you wear to walk, But we went to a nice showbiz party, and at the end of it, she's absolutely crippled. So she's sort of taking them off as we're walking back in the hotel, and she turns around and whispers to me the words that still fill me with dread. "Don't worry, darling, my next pair will have a shorter heel." I'm still a teacher. I still think, how much? So, but the slight discouraging, but that's why that kind of ability to just drag stuff. Of all the professional quizzers, I'm the glorious amateur, the gentleman player. I'm lucky. It comes naturally. It's not even training. My colleagues like Paul Sinner work so hard. Other people in the eggers like CJ, the hours they put in, and it works. They get brilliant, and then I just come along. Oh yeah, I remember reading that. So it's a gift. It was a worthless gift that suddenly, praise be ITV, became valuable.
Was there a moment then when you sort of started doing quiz competitions in the early noughties, like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, that it started from going, okay, this is quite a fun way to earn a bit of extra cash, to I wanted to...
Actually, it was here. In about 85, 86, I took part in the internal Oxford one. We made the semi-final, where we got thrashed by Lady Margaret Hall, I believe, and Stephen Pearson was the team captain, who's now like the Sir Alex Ferguson University Challenge. He's the librarian at Manchester University, and he's the one who trains their team every year, and they make the semi-final out for every year. And amongst their team, and amongst people I judge, we rate him possibly the best non-quizzer we've ever seen, a young Michael Gove. I'm not going to comment about his politics, but the guy is a natural quizzer. And if I ever saw him on a quiz show, I'd be going, brace yourselves, guys. This guy, what he is interested in, he will know it. He's, like me, a sticky memory. It's a gift. And one of the reasons I say it was 86 was, Trivial Pursuit started coming around then. Now, I've got my third, so I'm not the brightest cookie in the... I know everyone says Oxford, they're the dumbest, but in my group of 8, yeah, I was 8th out of 8 for the extra mathematicians. To be fair, 5 was a Millionaires now, so I'm judging myself with a good company. But I noticed they were all that, yeah, you're not very bright, but when it came to Trivial Pursuit, they'd only play me 3 or 4-handed, and I thought, oh, hang on, I've clearly got some skills here. Then after I left Oxford, I went to Butlins, and there was these old quiz machines, there was an old one called Give Us a Break, which guaranteed £10 from a 20p stake if you got 18 questions right. With my kind of memory and plus an ability to look up the wrong answers, soon was getting 18 out of 18 every time. They were my personal piggy bank. Paid for every car up until recently. So who knew? But it was a bit of fun. So yeah, I was lucky. I found what I was born to do. Some people are unlucky enough not to do it. But you never know where it's going to be, what it is that you do, which either gives you tremendous satisfaction or make a living out of it.
Do you still find time to quiz for fun outside of your job?
Well, I gather you're dragging me into one tonight, and I love quizzing, to be fair. The biggest problem now is I still love quizzes, but I've got a kid, and suddenly your free time drops a little bit. So now it's like, having arranged this, I'm going back tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday night, I'm looking after him because it's the wife's turn to go out with her friends. So I love doing it, but you just haven't got the free time you used to. But I still love it. The good news, I thought people would never let me into a quiz, more like the other way around. They invite you in, and when they get one right that I don't know, and it will happen, boy, do they live out on it. You just go. I would say that me as a pro quizzer, though, it's different to most people. Most people try to be really good and get a load of questions right. As a pro, I try and avoid getting them wrong, so it's all about working on weaknesses. So if we get a round of quizzes, I try and get 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 on every round. I don't try and give away a soft question, so I hopefully, for example, quiz literature. every person here's probably read more books than me, but I know the facts that get asked about quiz literature. So the largest part, Hamlet, the largest part by a non-titled character, Iago, Dickens' last work, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, all that kind of stuff. I think I'm right, is that right? Yeah. So I know the kind of questions that come up time after time after time, and hopefully I get them right. Sometimes I don't, but it's all about trying not to give the soft questions away. I'll tell you now, we've had 2 pro quizzes on British telly. They've both coming up to 2,000 episodes, us and Eggheads. By any standards, that's amazing longevity for a style of TV. I could just about guarantee there will be other such things in the future. I don't know when, I don't know where. My guess is Channel 4, because it's got a hefty youth component, will want younger professional quizzes. So they will be looking. We as ITV, I know they've looked over 1,000 people at various points to see, could you be a future chaser? The biggest problem is they meet so many people who are great on Mastermind, great on University Challenge, but they have little weaknesses. And you go, well, that's the problem, is it's going to cost us money. Or unfortunately, it's fair to say the top 100 quiz in the country, there's definitely a heavy number of them on the spectrum. I mean, I don't think I'm on the spectrum, but I'm really close to it. And be honest. That's what honesty has a surprise factor in TV and politics. That is that ability to focus on one specific thing, you're more interested in facts than people. Because I used to sum up my life when I was a single man is, I could tell you that the capital of Estonia was Tallinn, but what does it mean when that girl's giving me that funny little smile? And I'd be going, know what you're good at, know what you're not at. Well, the reason I say that is, there will be opportunities. And TV has a big problem in the world of quiz. The vast number of applicants to just about every quiz shows are white, middle-aged, straight men. So by definition, TV has a duty to be representative. So the further you are away from that demographic, the better chance you've got of going on. Simple fact, 6 out of 7 applicants to every quiz show are male. So if you want a 50-50 male-female split, you do the maths. You're 6 times more likely to get on if you're female. TV, so if you're young, female, visibly ethnic minority, or alternative sexual orientation, you've got a much better chance of getting on, because TV is wonderful in that regard. I don't know if it's the most gay-friendly industry out there, but it must be pretty close. You just don't ask. But that's the joy of TV. So the reason I mention it here is, it's more like pro wrestling than perhaps I should care to admit, in that it's not about we ever throw us up, damn, never, ever. But any professional wrestler will say they see people who've got all the technical skills and they say, yeah, but have you got personality? Can you get the crowd to love you? And ideally, a pro quizzer needs both, that they can answer questions and there's something about them make people want to watch them or want to throw things at them, but it's just as good.
Doesn't look like I'm going on any quiz shows anytime soon then. Do you have any particular weaknesses other than the ability to read that strange smile from a woman that you could share with us?
Oh yeah, I've got certain areas that I've mentioned literature, it's not my strength. It's ironic, as my literature has got better, areas of real strength like sport and science have actually got a bit worse because I don't work on them anymore, I don't need to. I've got a secret strength, which when I was playing as an amateur, it's not obvious from my CV and background being a maths teacher and a PE teacher. I'm actually really into history. So I did cheat when they asked me on quiz shows, what are you weak on? I'd always say history. A number of times it came up. I'm not daft. The one thing I'm definitely, and I deliberately leave it as a weakness, is soap operas. And arrogant statement number 57 of the evening, Superman needs kryptonite. Bradley loves it when there's a question come up about soap operas because he knows I don't know it. The audience don't know I don't know it. All the celebrities know I don't know it. So they're just waiting there. But actually, my wife watches EastEnders a bit, so I have it on in the background. So I've again, that sticky memory, you sort of absorb it when you're not looking. And also, if my job depended on it, I'd close that weakness in a couple of weeks. But there I'm quite deliberately giving them something, almost like you're deliberately giving them, dare I say it, I'm obviously older than you, the, what was it, the Death Star with the weakness. If it had been me as Grand Moff Tarkin, I'd go, yeah, leave that in there, but we're secretly building a metal grill behind it. So by the time they go, it's a trap.
You sort of briefly touched on this when you were talking about Only Connect earlier, but what is your quizzing highlight of your career so far? Would it be winning Only Connect?
Yeah, that was great as a team one. I almost didn't get the gig as a chaser because I hadn't won big TV shows. But it was very hard to get on TV quiz shows because producers want fair matches, which is understandable. And if you show what you can do, they're then going, we're not letting him on, he'll murder the opposition. Because I actually had with the first producer, Sue Allison, they're saying, well, we're not sure, you've never won anything. And I said, well, she produced about a dozen shows. I said, would you have ever let me on those shows? And she went, oh no, you're far too good. Ta-da! So yeah, TV, I mean, well, when I got 26 in a row right on the chase, obviously that was because no one's ever done it before or since. I don't think they ever will. When I'm good, I'm very good. But it's actually, the biggest one is actually the big wins in America, because probably any American or non-British people who will realise how much pop culture changes without you realising it when you go abroad. So having to do really well in America, the best compliment I got paid was at the end of the first series was the host, Brooke Burns, brilliant host. She turned around and asked me, so Mark, how many times have you been to America? And I went, this was my first time. And they were like, and because that was the question I was dreading all through the interviews were, yeah, I could do all this stuff in America, but I've never actually been here before. And you imagine trying to study for a different country when you're not there. So any time I won in America, it was great fun.
One of the questions I have down here actually is sort of like related to that. What differences do you notice in quiz competitions across the world? So you obviously do Chase Australia now as well. Are there discernible differences across the world in the approach to quizzing and the sort of structure of the...
Yes. Britain is the everyman show. We're very proud of the fact we've had 18-year-olds, and I think we've had a 90-year-old, and we've certainly people in their 80s. And it's great because you make assumptions about people, and every once in a while, you're surprised when you've got the 21-year-old nurse who actually has got the gift and is obviously serious quizzer. I think one time we had a lady who was about mid-70s, and she hammered out. Like we're going, where did that come from? So it's really nice when we see someone. We make judgments, everybody does, and most of the time it's right. Every once in a while you get it wrong, I go, hello. So we're the everyman show. Australia's pretty similar, but because they don't pay expenses, if we're filming in Melbourne, it tends to be people from Melbourne and surrounding area. If we're in Sydney, so it's got a slightly more smaller base, so it's thing. America, the exact opposite. They've got a bit of a Logan's Run attitude. They don't let too many people on much above in their 30s, or in the 40s certainly. So they're younger. We get so many people are Jeopardy champions, which one end is great because you're thinking, yeah, these guys have got a bit of a rep. You know, they're quite good. They study. At the same time, I'm going, okay, bring it on. This is what happened. The best person I ever played on the GSN version of the Chase was a guy called James Holzhauer, who it turned out they'd warned me before, and this is the highest rated candidate we ever had, and he walloped me. No argument. But I loved it because they also gave him two equally good, or very good teammates, and it took about an overdose. It was like going, okay, normally there's one good player and two people who are there for the experience. All three were really good. They beat me 26-9, and I'm smiling as I walk off, and they went, how can you be like that? And I said, because you've just asset stripped 3 teams and put all their star players together. The next 2 teams will be rubbish, and they were. But the Americans put them on. And funny enough, this guy James Holtz I mentioned, I put a tweet afterwards saying, without doubt the best contestant I've ever faced anywhere. And then a couple of years ago, he was the guy who won 32 straight games, won several $1 million, and set so many records on Jeopardy, and was one of my colleagues on the Chase ABC, and a brilliant young man.
Is there a game show anywhere in the world that you most want to do that you haven't been able to? Tipping Point.
Done Tipping Point, won that. But it's probably the strange ones. I'd have loved to have done, well, it's quite annoying. Mastermind, the one thing I will say is very controversial. I don't believe they get away with what they do, because the producers effectively decide which contestants get which questions, and you're on their honour that they'll try their best to make it as level as possible. And you think about Mastermind, other shows you can disrupt or interfere with the contestants and get points off them. Mastermind, effectively, it's 4 people each doing a Viva exam, an oral exam. So if they're the ones getting the easy questions, there's nothing you can do about it. It's the one thing I am a bit bitter about. I was asked by the Animal Health Trust to go on it, and they said the fee's £4,000, but we give it direct to the charity. And I thought, great, happy to do that. Dear old BBC said, no, you're not allowed on. And I'm going, fair enough, but I'm going, you just cost my charity £4,000, thanks for that. The one I'd love to go on, and Channel 4 invited me, then uninvited me, I don't know why, was Crystal Maze. Just, it looked so much fun.
Do you have a favourite comedic moment from any of the shows? Any sort of wrong answers or?
Oh, well, it's more like cringing when it sounds silly, but when you're going at top speed, your mouth is disengaged from your brain sometimes, and you're not stopping to check, you're just firing out the first answer that comes in your head. So I've even got a maths question wrong because I didn't listen to it. By far the most common mistake I made, and I as a teacher, I'm always saying, RTFQ, read the full question. Well,
I didn't learn it as full at school.
Yeah, I'm well trained now. I know I could get away with swearing, but every time I see a camera, I thought, better not. I've already been told, my agent said there are certain words you can't use, and you can't use the F word, the MF word, and definitely not the C word, so okay. But then where's going? I've lost my frame then.
Sort of funniest moment.
Oh, funniest moment. Yeah, so things like, how many Teletubbies are there? 5. What the? As I'm saying it, I'm going, what? It's almost like there's an alien inside your brain going. And the first time we ever did minus offers, and one of the best shows I've ever been with, and the first one to get 3 million viewers, they scored 25. I'm absolutely charging. So I got about 10 right in a row in 30 odd seconds. I'm flying with about 2 seconds to go, and he won to win. How many legs does her? And at which point I'm just going 4 as I hear Bradley go flee. So I go, no, 6, no, beep. Unfortunately, they edited it out, so my FUCK got beautifully starbursted out. Good work by the editors there. But it was great fun. I've never seen anything like it, because they took a negative offer, and the team, the seat 4 and the other 3 turned on him. They were on my side. It's brilliant.
Do you watch back your performances on game shows?
Again, I haven't got time. I used to watch time because partly eager, but also see what did I do which I think worked and what didn't do. And I generally, being the most experienced chaser in the world, I've been obviously America and Australia, I'm all saying to the new guys and stuff and girls, if you can stand it, look at what you did and think, do I like that, or are you cringing when you see it? Because if you're cringing, either make it part of your act or dump it fast. It's TV will forgive just about anything except being boring. And it sounds a terrible statement to make, but it is. So many people, and they say, I'm a better quizzer than you, and I go, I know you are. So I said, how come you've got the gig and they haven't? And it's like trying to explain the colour blue. I'm sort of going, one of them is like a world champion, but even his tone of voice is a flat monotone all the time. You try and listen to him for 30 seconds and you can't, and you go, you just see he's never going to understand it. So the good news is, if any of you have got characterization, personality, you're a natural performer, and you can make yourself into a half-decent quizzer, there's going to be a job out there. We've got a simple test for being a chaser, and it's 20 questions right in 2 minutes. If you get 20 questions right in 2 minutes, you're probably not going to cost too much money, so welcome aboard. One of my colleagues is occasionally, when they're having a bad run, is down at 18, and then the money starts piling up. We had a lady who, she's on telly a bit, I won't reveal her name, she's very bright, but when we test out, she was averaging about 16 or 17. And we wanted her desperately to be on the show, but the producers just went, she'll cost us too much money. I will say this, and it's a simple statement of fact. I've been asked on both Britain, or all of Britain, America and Australia, can I find a female quizzer who can play like Anne or Jenny and looks like she could be on Love Island? I call that Project Unicorn. I'm not saying there aren't out there, but what I'm saying is, guys, in the Americans, they've been running quizzes for 60 years. I said, are you telling me if you found someone like that, you wouldn't have signed her up before she's left the studios? Just saying, it's TV. It's a very visual medium. I'm lucky. I'll stand up to make the point. Normally, I got thrown off shows because when your host is, being like most actors, about 5'7" or 8", and with a bit of a complex about their height, I stand next to them. We're not having him on here. Suddenly, though, for being a chaser, when I went along to the audition, I'm wearing my big Soviet Army-style greatcoat. I come ducking in under the door. It's flailing behind me like Superman's cape. The first producer, the one who hired me, Sue Allison, said, I didn't know what the chaser was going to look like, and then you walked in. So a bit of other people turned up wearing suits or their best knitwear and personality to match, and then wonder why they didn't get a job. Well, I say Pat Gibson, who's now an Egghead world champion, he turned around after the interview and said, well, I got everything right. I don't know what more I could have done. And I'm going, you just don't get it, mate. You don't put any personality out. He's a lovely guy, but he's a natural introvert. Well, no, I'll tell you now, if you want to get on any quiz show, and I include University Challenge, Mastermind, all the serious ones, it's more important to have a funny story about yourself than your score. Doesn't have to be true. We put it, the thing is, I always love it when the people tell little fibs to get on the show. There was a guy once who got, he's a very good player, Mastermind semi-finalist. His team won, and he told everyone, oh, if I win, I'm donating my share to the youth rugby section of my club. And so he won, and then our handlers who are looking after them, researchers said, oh, I bet your rugby club's really pleased about that, a quarter of £40,000. So that's 10,000, I think you're doing the maths. And he just went, no, I've just left the wife and I needed to shack up with the girlfriend. And you could see they were furious. How dare he lie to us? And I'm going, you muppets. You know, you're not under oath. He told the story to get them on. They call it auditions with a good reason. It's all about presenting yourself. Some people do it really well. If you're lucky to be attractive of either sex, use it. Dress well, have a funny story. It is an audition. You need to stand out. It's far more important, can they remember, when they record you to all this 2 to 3 minutes, can they remember you? Did they stand out? They often don't care about your score. They only care about your score when it comes to putting the team together. This is why people sometimes know, how come there's nearly always, later in Seek for the Chase, at least half the time, the running order goes the quiet but decent one, the strong one, the pretty one of either sex, and the nutter. And it's quite deliberate. They want the person who they think's got the biggest personality to be in the game the longest, and the one who's going to have the most flexibility of options in Seek 4. Seek 3, look more times than not, and you will see it's someone in their 20s or 30s who the sun or the star are going to drool over when they do their clickbait piece. You might think that's incredibly cynical and sexist. Well, it's both sexist. It's TV. They do anything to get the headlines.
Just a couple of questions from me before we open up to the audience.
You may notice I do like talking.
Okay, I'll do a couple of...
I'm here all night, so I'm here till you guys get bored.
A couple of the more casual questions then. If you were a contestant on The Chase, which one of your colleagues would you most want to face, and least want to face?
Unfortunately, that's working. Otherwise, Sean or Dara. Problem is, I'm privileged to know what our internal testing is like, and there's a clear pecking order, and it's Paul is brilliant. Very closely behind him is me, who occasionally beat. It depends. The older the questions, the better I do. Then it's Jenny, and then it's Anne, but we're all really close together. Jenny is the best of us, being the youngest at the up-to-date stuff. And if time wasn't a factor, she'd be number 1 or 2 because she's brilliant. She just moves all the time. Let's just say there's a tail off after that and leave it at that. My colleague Sean, I'll make the point of thing, He's got an IQ of 96, and yet he's a barrister, he's hoping to get silk. Can you imagine what it must have been like trying to become a barrister as a black man in the 1980s and 90s? I don't even want to know how much discrimination he faced. Unbelievable drive and commitment. If I'd have had his drive and commitment, I'd have been a headmaster by 35. So he's such a hard worker. And he's still the best quiz, one of the best quizzes in the world on the 20th century. The problem is, the 21st century has passed him by. He doesn't own a computer, we think, and the rest of us are all studying all the time. And unfortunately, if any of you are neurobiologists or whatever, I was told there's two different types of long-term memory, crystal and fluid. Crystal is your hard facts, which starts going in your mid-60s. So who was president, he's still as good as anyone on that. But the fluid one, which is comparing, contrasting, and calculating, you may notice anything that involves him having to calculate something or compare, he's in trouble. Because he's a 61-year-old man, and unfortunately, hey, I'm 56, I can feel my brain slow down. It's just merely very good rather than human. And so people sometimes think, how can he not get this? And plus he doesn't watch telly, so when they ask what colour are most of the characters in The Simpsons, they're skinned, he doesn't have a clue, and everyone's going, oh, come on! But he'll watch TV, he'll watch football, but he doesn't watch. So we've all got strengths and weaknesses. I wouldn't like to face the ladies because their strengths are not mine. Whereas Paul, plus the thing I know about Paul is brilliant plus brittle, and I'd play him the man, not the ball. I'd wind him up. That's the advantage of a lifetime of sport. You could just, the little bit of, as the Australians would call it, it's not sledging, it's the fine art of mental destruction. So you start, how's the tremor coming here, Paul, or whatever. It might sound cruel, but I'll take any. You may notice I do it with the contestants a little bit. The fine line between abuse and just trying to put them off a little bit. So, the evil laugh is designed to say, I know this, and I know you don't.
I'm glad I've been spared of that.
And sometimes I bluff just to really throw them.
Have you ever been asked, and this is perhaps a gap in my research for this, but to represent Exeter College in the Celebrity University Challenge?
No, and I wish they would.
Do you think that'd be fair?
Yes. But it's BBC. It's sometimes, like I said, Michael Gove is brilliant. They invite all kinds of the great and eminent and the good, and sometimes I feel like going, well, I'm just eminent in a particular field. To be fair, I'm an all-rounder. I'm probably going to get beaten by most of these guys on their specialist subjects. But I know a little bit about everything. I'd love to be invited. But somehow I don't think they are.
Is it not organised by the colleges then? Is it organised by the BBC?
I have no idea.
Yeah. A final question from me. I promised I'd ask one of our security staff that I'd ask.
Yeah, security people like me. I think I'm one of them. I think, yeah. I've done my share of door work.
Do penguins have knees?
Ooh, you evil so-and-so. Let's think. My instinct is to say yes. I know the weird one, as you've learned, strange one, that elephants are the only mammals with 4 knees. Even the other big creatures, their front limbs are still elbows rather than knees by definition. Whereas elephants, because of the extra, they are actual knees. That's what I was told. I'm willing to. That's the problem. You learn stuff, and then afterwards, is that really true or not? But I'd guess yes.
I don't know what the correct answer is.
Because logically, otherwise, logically, otherwise, legs are pretty damn useless if you can't bend and get any spring out of them. Anyway, that would be my. But I'm willing to be corrected.
I don't see penguins springing anywhere, sort of.
Well, they fly and they swim and they've got a little spring. Might not be much flex, but you've only got to bend your knee a little bit to get a surprising amount of power.
I suppose. No, right now it's time for audience questions. So if you have a question, please raise your hand or your membership card. I will point to you, and then one of our secchies will bring you a microphone. Please don't start speaking until the microphone gets to you. So any member wishing to ask a question, please raise your hand. The member in the front row.
Right, quickly, we're going to make this guy run.
Hello.
Hi there.
What does your revision look like? How do you prepare?
If there's a producer listening, it's 70 hours a week of hard work. If they're not listening, it's about 10. But before anyone says it, let me put it in perspective. Recently just watched the Marvel Cinematic Universe and some of their spin-offs again. That's work. That's revision. Downton Abbey, that's definitely religion. We've been told quite clearly that the big Netflix shows we're going to get asked on. So I haven't got around to Squid Game yet. The Queen's Gambit I've done the Umbrella Academy. That's all work. When I've got my feet up on a Saturday watching the sport, it's work. When I roughly speaking, very roughly grade knowledge into 5 categories. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. With 1 being, it's embarrassing if I don't get that right. So the capital of France is Paris, that sort of thing. I've got, like I said, got a 5-year-old. I hope by 8 or 9 he's got them right. Level 2, you'd expect most teams to get that right. Maybe the odd person doesn't know it, but it's a fairly standard one. Level 3, you're starting to get to half the teams might not get this. So something like a 19th century, or 20th century US Prime Minister, sorry, UK Prime Minister who isn't Margaret Thatcher or Winston Churchill. Level 4.
Got 5 of them here.
Yeah, I know. I tried to mention it there. Yeah, that's one of the questions. Just saying, was it 7 of them who've been
6? I'm afraid.
6 of them so far. Thank you. I was a contemporary of both Boris and David. I didn't move in their circles for some reason. The one thing I'm fairly confident is I think I've aged better than Boris have, but then he's had more kids than me, so that's. So level 4, you're starting to feel quite smug that you get it right and other people don't. And if they get it right, you're going, okay, it's a literary question. I know that's their strength. And level 5 is the "are you kidding me" question. What's that doing in a general knowledge question? And if you get it right, you're thinking, I got it right, but I'd never expect to be asked it. So my aim is almost like going, always running a level 1, level 2. So I mentioned some of those TV shows, the big shows in the last few years. Love Island, I hate to say, know a little bit about them. So the hosts, maybe 1 or 2 of the winners, and generally the amount of tan they use, but that's about it. I've actually seen the Love Islanders being auditioned, and you're going, and they're in their outfit, and you're going, okay, I don't think there's a general knowledge element to their audition.
Just a quick follow-up from me. You mentioned your son then. Is he being trained to be a quizzer from a young age?
I'll let him enjoy life because who knows what he's bright. Obviously I got my maths background. He's well ahead of his contemporaries, but I don't want to be that guy who hothouses their kid. At the same time, I keep winding up the producers to say my plan's to hang on until he's about 21, 22, and then retire so Baby Beast can take over my gig. Yeah. Well, he'll be my height. Genetics is a wonderful thing.
Any other members wishing to ask a question? The member in the green jumper.
On sprint.
What specific memorization techniques would you use to maximize the amount of information you take in?
This is the problem. Because I'm the natural, I don't really do it. I just absorb it. I've seen the people who Tony Bazan and their memory palaces. They clearly work, and they're great, but I always wonder if it's a little bit like they work for people who don't have natural ability. Is it going to get in the way? I'll let you into a secret. I'm not great at memorizing lines for panto. I guess my brain's a bit like random access memory. I store things all over the place. Whereas obviously a script, you've got to have a precise flow and all. And if you're working with someone, you can't just leave them to hanging out to dry. You've got to hit exactly the right order to give them a chance. It's interesting, Kevin Ashman, the egghead, who's by a lot of people's consensus the greatest quiz player who's ever lived. The great quote about him is he's never met a museum he didn't like. He's phenomenal work rate. But it's interesting, a subject like horse racing, he's got no interest at all in it, and he says, so it just doesn't go in. And I'd agree with that. Subjects, I'm lucky, I'm interested in a lot of things, and if they are, I learn it. One observation, when I was a teacher, one of my pupils in special needs, and he was statemented for it, statemented for extremely poor memory. He'd even been given a sort of tablet laptop to do his stuff on. And yet, if I told him the date, he could tell me what the number 1 was that day, and he was right. There's nothing wrong with his memory, he just didn't care about the rest of school. So, there's so many people out there, they say, I don't know anything. And then you get them on the subject they are interested in, they could bore for Britain on it. So everyone's got a phenomenal interest. I guess the key thing is have an interest, but that's easier said than done. I've got to say, those memory things, they really do work. Just personally, I'm too lazy to do them. Other people will learn, for example, films. They don't bother learning the plot or the actors, but they always learn the directors because it's very quizzable. Whereas I'm the idiot who actually watches the film. As I said I'm probably the greatest expert on crap films in Britain because I'll actually watch all those 1-star rated sports movies, etc. I said, because I like them. It's like, I know what I like. And they say, why aren't you watching? Everyone says this is an epic. And I'm just going, I'm still a peasant at heart.
Any other questions? The member in the leather jacket on the front row.
Hi, I actually have 2 questions, I hope that's okay. First one, we've heard a bit about some of the comedic moments on your time on The Chase. Do you have an absolute standout favourite moment overall? And my second question is, have you been asked to go on any reality TV shows?
I'll answer the second one first. I couldn't possibly comment that in no way, shape or form am I going to refer to a certain well-known ITV show that my best friend and the godmother to my son was on a few years ago to great success. I am absolutely not making any comment whether I've been interviewed or invited on it. Other than to say my father was a master butcher and I'd make a damn good cannibal if they let me in there. So as the second one, TV, they always say, don't tell anyone, and go. And they said, and then the problem is, I walk down the street and they go, people spot me, duh. And then the first one, absolutely, well, I was there when it happened. The backstory was our main question writer, Luke Kelly, had found out for about a couple of years of the existence of a German skier called Fanny Schmeller. He tried for 2 years to get the producer to put the question in, and she said, we are not that kind of show. We don't do it. She relented. Last show of series 3 or 4, and Anne was doing it, and I was there in the background thing. And when it did, and I know they've edited it, or maybe my memory slightly playing tricks, because when they read it, you could see almost like this ripple effect went round the crew or whatever as we started to get it. And then Bradley got it, and then Anne got it. And the Aussie guy who was on it didn't get it for quite a while. And it felt like for about 10 minutes, Bradley did a masterclass of losing it, but not quite. And then sort of getting it back, saying, okay, we'll do it. And then he went again, and it was like, and it's just a priceless thing of sheer mirth. I fell off my chair with joy because I was in Chaser's Corner, which, if you're looking at Anne, in cricketing parlance, I was in about gully or third slip, so behind her and to her right, but also. And you've got something funny when the crew can't stop laughing. Which is one thing I've tried. If I get a line in, especially and the crew laugh, I think, yeah, it's a good one. Because they're cynical professionals. So you feel you've done your job there or whatever. And it made 500,000 difference to our viewing figures, and we went from a solid hit to a phenomenon. And this is the best thing. When we wind up ITV, I said, remind us again how much advertising you've given The Chase over the years. And it's about 50p, but every day now we're the 3rd or 4th biggest show on telly that night, and we're normally behind Emmerdale or Corrie. We're beating EastEnders every day of the week, and considering we're run on about 1/50th of the budget, that's a bit embarrassing. And the lovely Richard Osman once come up with a great line, and why more people don't take this seriously. He claimed one time, it was true, Pointless Celebrities had the same viewing figures as the X Factor. It did help that Pointless was on just before Strictly, but it still got the same viewing figures. And he made the point that said, we did an entire series of 24 Pointless Celebrities for the same money as one episode of X Factor. And as Richard's a brilliant producer, I can believe him on that. I always say, what's the big secret of The Chase? And the answer's simple. We're cheap. And don't knock it. Broadcast TV, if you study the viewing figures, They're going down and down and down because your age group know there's alternatives to just sitting down and watching telly at the prescribed time. We're really lucky. The Chase, so many pubs, it's on between 5 and 6. I know because I keep going in and there and going, please let me not be on, please let me not, you know, sometimes they've noticed me, sometimes they don't. It says how much I go in the pubs, but it's nearly always for meals at 5 o'clock. And effectively, the commercial television and the BBC thing, it's dying out. I was told that the median age of a BBC One viewer is 62. And that was a few years ago. Now it's probably more. So there's an obvious thing to say. What's going to happen in 10, 20 years where the median age in the 70s? And plus they're the ones who've been conditioned to pay the license fee year in, year out, whatever. You might be the generation who go not unreasonably, why the beep am I paying it? And before I'm having a go at BBC's expense, look at ITV's viewing figures even 10, 15 years ago. The fact that we at 5 o'clock are getting 3.5 million viewers, and we're one of the biggest shows on telly, in 2000, anything less than 8 million, you'd have been cancelled from primetime telly. It's a problem all of mainstream broadcasting's got. Because you've got this YouTube, wonderful, I'll probably get 100,000 viewers from it or whatever. By the end, maybe even 1 million if people like it or whatever. So I'm careful not to say anything too outrageous like, yeah, I'm the best chase and I'm carrying all those bums. Oops, too late.
Well, if the show you're alluding to in your first answer is what I thought it was, we had Roman Kemp come on Friday, and I believe he placed third in that, so you can ask him for some tips.
Oh, yeah, second generation, it kind of helped. I met both of them, they're lovely.
Any more questions? The member in the front row.
Excuse me.
Hi, I was going to ask, what would you say is your most niche subject interest?
Niche subject? Okay, this is not the ones because obviously they know I like my sports, so I know my Aussie rules football, my sumo and stuff, because Channel 4 used to cover them both in the 80s and stuff. But the one weird thing is, I loved history, and for some strange reason, I've got a pretty good knowledge of Japanese history. There used to be a role-playing game called Bushido in the early 80s when geek I was, I actually did. So I actually know probably way more than I should do about it. So they're always asking, sometimes they want to catch us out, and they ask us like, what was the name of the masterless warriors in feudal Japan? And they're shocked when I go, Ronin, and they're like, you're not expected to get that. And I go, well, for starters, have you never seen 47 Ronin, you know, on the, but the best one is that if you watch the show, you may notice we get one right, then Bradley's not expecting us to. His eyebrows go back. And that's always a good thing. When he goes, and I still remember the best one was, because I know, and they asked me, what was it, which Dutch DJ had a club hit in the 2000s with, was it You Don't Know Me or whatever, and I'm going, and I go, hang on, that's Armand van Helden, isn't it? And Bradley almost had a burst of blood. I go, don't ask me how, but I knew it. Well, the answer is I listen to things, and it's played so much on a Friday, Saturday night, even I picked it up now. I am that idiot when I go to all the nightclubs like Attic and stuff. I'm actually paying attention to a lot of the music going, perhaps I should know this if you guys are all, getting down. So it's like now I'm going, now I know that Stacey's mum is by the Fountains of Wayne. And Stacey's mum has got it going on, so it's going to happen. And I'm waiting for one day that's going to come up and Bradley's going to go, how the? So this means surprise knowledge, so the ones they don't expect you to get. They always say that's why I'm the hardest one to set to, because they know what Anne's... They say they don't, but it's fairly obvious. Whenever Anne's in trouble, she tends to get nice hard history questions. Paul gets 80s tennis and pop music. Sean is football and boxing. And me, it's the weird one because they just don't know what I know. And like I said, it froze because they expect you to get it wrong. And when you get it right, it's like, well, that was dumb. I will cheerfully admit this because it's an open secret. The celebs aren't quite as good as they think they are. We give every celeb a pro forma piece of A4, and it's more or less say, tell us what you know. And it's only fair because we've got to make a show where they've got a chance of winning. It's a handicap. If we beat them by a minute every time, it's a terrible show and it gets cancelled. And we'd rather them get asked questions on what they know. What you don't see is the number of times they'll make a comment like, I've just been there, that's my favourite band. You know, oh, I know that author, and you just go, and they still get it wrong, which is great. And the other thing they do to help the celebs are they pick the right chaser. So let me give an example. Jonathan Ross, very bright man, an acknowledged expert in certain cult areas of TV and film. He really likes his cult TV. He's very big into anime and manga. So they'll ask questions on that. So we'll get questions on The Walking Dead, which he follows, or, you know, all the kind of shows we know he knows. He'll get asked them and he'll get them right. But the second bit is they then just make sure who he plays against. Now, they don't put Jonathan Ross up against Jenny, who watches that stuff, or me, who watches that stuff, and who'll also get it right. They put him up against Sean, who doesn't watch television. Hey, I'll face the soap opera stars, and I'm going, I'm in trouble here. Or someone who's a fashionista, and I'm going. It was interesting, Jenny, when she first started, did a bit of homework on the 4 contestants, and just from their Wikipedia page, this is brilliant research, she found out, she did about 100 questions and 5 of them came up. So we can be sneaky as well as them. And it's a handicap show. The one thing I will happily boast about it, and as a good mathematician, I can prove this, I get tougher teams than everybody else. So if you have occasionally me doing the Mario Balotelli and going, why me? And they openly say, Mark, you want to be the best, you've got to be the best. And there are times I go, yeah, but can't I have the cannon fodder that some other people do? It's nice to win occasionally.
I think we have time for one, maybe two more questions.
I think I'm also going to the pub afterwards, and I'm not drinking, so I'll be like this all evening.
The member in the salmon trousers.
I'll try and do these next ones very quickly.
On a related note, what would your special subject be?
Clint Eastwood films, or the Olympics, not The Simpsons, it used to be. Or if I'm being sensible, a TV show that hasn't been many episodes of, so you can just, Blackadder's brilliant. I've got the box set, watch them all the day. And I'll very quickly do this one if you want.
I've noticed a couple of times on Beat the Chasers when there's like 2 seconds left on your clock, you'll just buzz in and say cheese. Why is it always cheese?
If you analyse over several thousand shows, what do you think is the most likely answers to come up? And they're things like cheese, USA, pasta, for, you know, it's a country or a number or a food stuff. And it actually happened a few years ago, and I feel guilty afterwards, but it was an example of perfect technique. I got 2 seconds ago, so you've got no time. I heard one word, Longines, or Longines it's pronounced. I just went Switzerland. It was the correct answer. I've utterly robbed them, but at the same time, I'm thinking it was brilliant technique. When you're down to that level, it's word association. You don't stop to think, because any answer is better than none. And one day it will be right, and you'll see them going, this isn't fair, but it's brilliant. This is why I vary it, so I now do for, or pasta, or USA. But they've started to do it. When 3 seconds ago, you haven't got time to hear the old question, you've just got on the first answer. And sometimes it works.
Finally, I'll ask you one last question, which we ask all of our speakers before we finish the event. If you could, in 2 sentences, give some advice to our members here and online, what would it be? Enjoy your life. Some of you know exactly where you're going to go. A lot of you won't. And it's the little things. The world has changed so much in the 34 years. We had no tellies, no computers. You're the generation, it could be a nightmare, or you could have fusion power, gene technology, stem cell therapies, and you're all living to 100 plus. You don't know. Flexibility is everything. With that, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Mr. Mark Labbett.